Welcome to JMC Live. This will be a special pre-record with Brother Sean Rogers. He works with the Deep Waters Ministry in Georgia. This man, I've had a relationship with him for almost a year. For those who remember who Dennis Mixer was with Ministry of the Sheep International, he actually stayed in the vicinity in Atlanta, Georgia, working hand in hand every day with the Deep Waters Foundation. And Brother Sean is what I would consider a missionary to people that the average person may look at, may say hello, but a lot of times they don't ever get involved. He has a background of a political science history degree from the North Georgia College and State University in 1991, and he's also a Christian. Brother Sean, I'd like to thank you for coming today.
You're welcome.
I wanted to start, you were saying that on your 21st birthday, in 1988, was when you felt this holy discontent, when you saw some people asking for help on the side of the street. You want to explain what happened that first event?
Sure. My plans had changed on my 21st birthday. People had to go out of state suddenly, and I found my plans up in the air, and I went ahead and went down to that part of town that I had planned to be, and that was a little 5 Points portion of Atlanta. And while I was walking down the sidewalk, I saw these emaciated young people, male and female, and some of them looked extremely young. I would predict probably in their early teens. But there they were on the streets. They had piercings and tattoos, mohawks, black fingernail polish. But you could also notice they were under an influence of some sort of drug. And you could see the track marks and telltale signs of heroin on their arms. In their sunken hollow cheeks, their pale white skin, as they're asking people that are walking by if they can spare some change so they can get something to eat. And I couldn't understand how I watched for a short time as people just walked by, almost as if they did not hear the person just make the request. And if there's one thing I have managed to do my entire life is to acknowledge people that speak to me, even if the answer is no. But these people acted like they didn't even hear them and just kept walking by. And I thought to myself, there's somebody possibly 13 years old. It's evening time. It's in Atlanta. And they're just walking by. A hungry child. Not even concerned, acting like they didn't hear them. And I kept wondering, why in the world does that world exist? But I could not do it. And I was going to have me a birthday party after all. And so I went to what was then Fellini's Pizza, now Little 5 Points Pizza. And I ordered 10 Sicilian pizzas, 10 pitchers of soda, and we took over the patio. And when the manager figured out who my guests were, he was a little perturbed with me at first, but we squared things away, and me and those wonderful kids sat out on that porch, and we visited till almost 2 o'clock in the morning. And even though I would not have made the choices they have made in their life, I also had to acknowledge I had not had to face a lot of the choices they had faced in their life. I don't know where I would be if I had had to do life in their shoes. So I sat there in absolute awe and thought to myself, I've had a blessed life. And so many people in this world, due to circumstances beyond their control, have often been confronted or challenged beyond their ability to cope. And they simply need to know that they are loved and that they do matter, and have people participate in their lives when family and friends have walked away and closed the door. So we had pizza, and it was almost like that was the day I caught the love bug. I could not walk past another person, and from that day on, I started doing things on the weekends in areas of Atlanta where the poor would gather. And in the early 90s, the early part of this decade that we're in now, I was down in Fort Lauderdale, and I worked down there, and finally I said to myself, I need to do this full time. God is calling me to take this leap of faith and just become a full-time Roman Catholic missionary to the poor. And I don't know what that means or how you do it, but tomorrow's day one.
Yeah, I see that we have the similarities with running into different people at the most on a time that you would not want to be thinking about anyone but yourself, your birthday. With this holiday season, we see everyone's focusing on money and themselves. And there was a story on MSNBC just recently where a husband and wife got a divorce, and the woman and the man were married to other people, and they wanted to jump into a new relationship. We see here in Cincinnati and Georgia and California, tent cities where people are just gathered and being told you can't stay here. Cities are changing ordinances where you can't be homeless on the street. There's not enough bathrooms. There's organizations trying to help solve that. So with your background of political science, and I know you said around 93, you said you just made a shift from politics and wanted to move on with your faith. What was this defining moment in close around the year 2005 that finally made you be able to move forward as a missionary?
Well, I had been working in Fort Lauderdale, and the hurricane started to hit rather abundantly, and so many people were suffering, so many people were struggling from the effects of natural disasters. A lot of people don't realize, because New Orleans caught the headline, but Hurricane Katrina was Tropical Storm Katrina off the coast of Fort Lauderdale for nearly, I want to say, 3 weeks. It just kept going north and then south, and then north and then south, but it never would come ashore. And then one day, a friend of mine said, I'm coming home from work early today because of the hurricane. I said, what hurricane? He said, Katrina has gone to Category 3, and she's going to be hitting land in 3 hours. And that was such a shock. And when it hit, it tore up the back room of our house. It took the front door off the hinges up front, and took power out all across South Florida. And that power wasn't restored in some areas for nearly a month and a half. But the very next day, after the storm had passed, I got on the phone and started pulling resources out of North Florida. And 2 days later, a tractor trailer loaded with ice, bottled water, foods that didn't need to be cooked and so forth showed up, and we were distributing food on the streets of Fort Lauderdale. And I would plug my phone in the cab of that tractor trailer, and while they're unloading the truck and distributing the food, I was arranging for more food, water, and ice to come down. And I did that for nearly 3 weeks before the power came back on. And I realized that the work that we do as missionaries is a vital contribution to our society. And it is a necessary contribution that we do not invest enough into. one of the neighborhoods that I served down there in Fort Lauderdale, I noticed recently on the news, about a year ago, a young man, he's riding his father's bicycle, and 3 young men come up and they want that bicycle, and he will not surrender it to them, and they doused him with lighter fluid and lit him on fire. I used to work in that neighborhood, and I'm telling you, missionaries can impact the lives of hate, anger, and frustration that are experienced by those youth that would consider doing that to another human being, more so than police and squad cars. But now we have 3 young teenagers who will be locked up in a cell with guards, will feed them, provide for them for the rest of their lives, perhaps. And the young man that was injured did survive, and the medical bills were astronomical. Think of all the money that will be invested into 4 human lives. 1 went injured, and 3 locked up. We can do better than that. And it really takes us as the body of Christ to stand up into the streets and say, we're going to help out. We're going to roll up our sleeves. We're going to save these kids from the darkness. And we're going to create a better world for our kids tomorrow.
And with that, Sean, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back.